to the regular meeting of the Leonard Village Council. Today is Monday, August 9th, 2021. I'd like to ask everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a brief invocation. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, we come to you this day and ask that you be with us and guide the decisions we make, and may it be in the best interest of this community. Amen.
Thank you. Okay, we have a roll call for attendance of the village council.
President McDonald.
Here.
Mrs. Sotheby.
Here.
Mrs. Arundel. Mrs. Swack. Mr. Kennedy.
Here.
Please note for the record that both trustee Arundel and trustee Swack were excused ahead of time, and that clerk Cindy Grosskopf and treasurer Judy Burse are present. Okay, council received the minutes of the regular meeting held July 12th. Are there any questions, changes, or corrections? If none, a motion to approve the minutes would be in order.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from the July 12th meeting.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as presented of the July 12th meeting. Hearing none, all in favor of the approval of the minutes of July 12th, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say no. Okay, I didn't hear you, Alex.
Yeah,
Okay.
you didn't even do the one. Sorry.
Okay, yeah, there's only three of us, so I really need to be sure that we have a quorum, so thank you. All right. Okay, council has before it a proposed agenda. I do have to ask your indulgence and add smart municipal credits as a new agenda, a new business.
It's number 9.
Pardon?
It's number 9.
I'm working from my old agenda. Okay. And then do we have crack ceiling on that? Okay, we're all set. Keep me honest. All right. So is there a motion then to approve the agenda as presented?
I so move.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say no. Okay, motion carries. Council has received a copy of the treasurer's report for the month of July. Are there any questions, changes, corrections? If none, a motion to approve, receive, and file the treasurer's report would be in order.
I'd like to make a motion to file the treasurer's report.
I'll second that.
There's been a motion and a second. Are there any questions on the motion? Hearing none, can we have a roll call, please?
President McDonald.
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy.
Yes.
Mrs. Sotheby.
Yes.
Very good, thank you. Motion carries. Okay, flip the report over. Accounts payable are on the other side. These are the disbursements for July. Are there any questions, changes, or corrections on them? If none, a motion to approve payment of the bills will be in order.
I make a motion that we pay the bills in the amount of $13,038.43 to the general fund, $3,153.63 to the major fund, 0 in local, and 0 in mill and park.
Second.
On a motion by trustee Sotheby and a second by trustee Kennedy, the July bills will be paid in the amounts stipulated. Do we have a roll call for approval?
Mr. Kennedy.
Yes.
President McDonald,
Yes.
Mrs. Sophie,
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, it's an opportunity for the residents or those present at the meeting, the public, to address the village council on any matter they wish to talk about. We ask that you be brief and to the point, and if there is an item that is up for consideration on the agenda as part of our business, you will have an opportunity to speak at that time. There is a 3-minute time limit for each comment before they can move on to another subject once everybody's been heard. Anybody want care to speak to the council tonight? Okay, thank you. Moving on then to new business, which we have a lot of. Council directed that we solicit bids, quotes last month for roll and call roof and the DPW roof. I contacted several roofing companies. Royal Roofing and Energy Shield were the only two companies that came out and actually walked the roofs and submitted proposals. So with that, council has before the bids from those, the quotes from those companies. Before we discuss the actual numbers, I have to inform you that Royal Roofing said they would make every effort to get the materials that they need. Apparently there's a shortage of the polyisomer product. They've offered to substitute 2 different other materials to it, but I don't think that, and that would not be, it wouldn't affect us on the DPW building, but it would affect us on an occupied structure. You have to have a certain amount of insulation. So they said they would do everything they could, but they couldn't promise. He said they might not get it till April of next year. But if we're willing to accept a substitute, we could, they would try and do it this year. The other quote is from Energy Shield. They were recommended by a couple of property owners here in the village, commercial property owners that have used them in the past. And I think it's a system somewhat like what was used on both structures previously. It's a foam base, a sprayed on foam. What appears different to me is that once they put the foam base on, they spray it with a material that turns into a membrane over the foam. And they say that if you maintain the membrane, you can recoat it after 20 years or whatever, and you don't have to remove all of the material as long as you don't let it deteriorate. So with that, the cost for Royal Roofing for roll and haul is $27,800. Now they did suggest some alternative, some additions, including adding metal copings over the existing top ridge. The concrete pads, I guess they are, that are around, they're kind of decorative looking. They are cracked. So it's an additional $4,200. If we use secure rock gypsum board, if that's $400 more, and then if we add 1.5 inches of polyisocyanate insulation, that's an additional $250. So that's roll and haul. For the DPW, the cost is $21,900. The only alternate they had suggested there was putting a gutter on the back side of the building, at an additional cost of $1,800. And you can see on there that they show, they have notes regarding fluctuating material prices, availability, et cetera, et cetera. The Energy Shield insulation, the total price for roofing on Roland Hall is $16,669, and the total price of all roofing work on the DPW building is $11,903. Their system, as I said, is a straight-on system. They do a standard 10-year material warranty, and the contractor issues a 2-year labor warranty, which Royal Roofing also has a 2-year labor warranty on it. So those are the only two companies that respond. So if you have any questions about either bid, I can try and answer them, or I'll get answers.
The membrane, isn't that what Kurt does on his roof?
Yes, Kurt was one of the businesses that suggested that we look at that. And I was not, I was interested in that because it hit this roof and the roof on the DPW. It held up for a lot of years before they did finally start to show wear and tear. Back in 2018, when we did the brickwork on Roland Hall, I went up in the lift, and the roof looked pretty rocky back then. I mean, it was starting to show more deterioration from UV, because I think whatever they had top coated it with maybe asphalt or something, and it hadn't stayed, and it got sucked into the foam. And so, regardless, both companies would have to remove the existing materials and then put new on.
What's the maintenance of, what type of maintenance has to be done on the membrane in order to make it last? What do you talk?
They spray some type of, I did send the council members the brochure, but you can't have perforations, and in the case of Royal Roofing, they run you either buy the metal coping that goes over the top, and then they run their system up to the metal or up to that aluminum, whatever you choose to use.
Do we get a price on maintaining it? I'm just curious.
No.
And how often do we have to do it?
Well,
If we want the roof to last?
no, I don't have any of that information. The only company that said anything about lifetime maintenance or maintaining maintenance over the lifetime of the product was Energy Shield, because they said once they've sprayed it down, it's good for, there's a 10-year warranty there, 2 years on workmanship. And then if you, like they say, if you have a hailstorm, if you have work done on the roof, you need to go up and have it inspected, and if there is damage from that work, they just come back, clean it off, and spray it again with the top coat. You don't have to do anything with the foam. And that is something I didn't know they could do. That may have been an option for this roof 10, 15 years ago, I don't know. But the total amounts, if we went with Royal Roofings for both buildings, that's for Energy Shield.
Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and for Royal Roofing, it's $39,000.
What? That was the 21.
No, 20.
27.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think it's
And then 1,800 for the gutter.
If we did the gutter's optional.
what is the budget even look like? I have
What?
Well, we've been talking about it. The roll and haul budget's pretty much blown because of the painting and, you know, all the work that we've done.
That and some,
Pardon?
that and some.
Yes. And so, we would likely have to use our, account reserves to pay for this. We're showing on, right now, $97,280 approximately in account reserves. So, we picked a bad time for the roof to go bad because of COVID, because of the material shortages and things like that. That's why it's a little more complicated than just saying, which roof do you want and how much do you want to spend, so.
Have we incurred any internal damage at this point?
We noticed there's some cracking on the inner plaster that may be due to water leakage in the winter. Like this spring in the hall, in the stairwell, there was some cracked plaster from areas that apparently had been cracked before, but I think it's getting worse. As far as DPW, you have to dodge raindrops in there during a good rain. It's really bad. So my recommendation would be, and we really don't have much choice, we would have to use account reserves to pay for these. Now, we're slightly over 20%, which is what the Michigan Municipal League and the state recommend the community have on hand for a rainy day fund. So if we were to pay $30,000 to $40,000, I don't think we would be putting ourselves in harm's way. I don't know what else costly could come up.
Don't say that.
Yeah.
Hopefully nothing.
Yes, but I don't have too many reservations. But we gotta have new roofs, that's the bottom line.
Well, it's not gonna get any better, that's the issue. It's
No,
not
and
gonna heal itself.
No, and we're not getting, and especially down in the DPW, we need, we've got some expensive equipment that doesn't need to be getting wet.
Well, we just have a paint job here, we don't need
Right.
that getting wet either.
So I will open it up for comment from council and then the floor. Anybody have an opinion? Okay.
What about roofs?
No opinion.
I guess my opinion would be is if we have a few village residents that already have the Energy Shield quote due to availability and cost, my recommendation would be looking at the Energy Shield quote. There's also a 10-year warranty. I think maybe if we look at bringing them back in 2 years to do an inspection, maybe that we could set up just an annual or a biannual inspection, and take a look at it, maybe we can cut this so we don't have this happen again. Especially if it's easy as, cut it out and replace it real quick.
Right. I did check, both companies are not Better Business Bureau accredited, so they don't have any history with the Better Business Bureau because they're not members and I guess there's no quotes.
Well, I agree with Alex, so.
That was a motion?
I would like to make a motion that we proceed forward with getting roofs replaced through Energy Shield Inc. At the cost of, what was it, $28,500 something?
For both roofs at the quoted price.
I'll second that motion.
Okay.
I only have one additional question. Was there any other preventative things that either company saw that they would suggest? I know like Royal Roofing, they suggested it was the trim, or is that one part of their system?
No, if you don't go with the aluminum trim. Then they come and they put a metal, like a piece of angle iron
Okay.
around the parapets. And then they run their system up to those things.
Yeah, I think as long as we're taking this opportunity to try and do that, if during this process they see something that looks like it could also be preventative, we should take a look at that and consider what they say.
Okay, yeah, if they uncover, I mean, we're assuming we won't have any or too many bad spots. They said, you can read on Energy Shields exactly what they're gonna do. They're gonna remove and replace deteriorated wood fascia in both facilities, and assuming that they don't hit any soft spots. And both companies went up on the roofs and walked them, and made notes before they submitted their quotes. So they pretty much, I'm pretty confident we should be able to stick pretty close. But if there was some damage, I'm sure we would probably have to pay, replacement cost by the foot for whatever we had to replace.
Yeah, that was going to be my follow-up question too, is do we want to look at potentially making a motion even for next meeting, or table a motion for next meeting to talk about any follow-up work that they may find, depending on when they're able to get in there. Because, if right now we're only approving the quote, when they come back and find additional stuff that they need to service, we'll have to look at that later.
Right, unless we build in a safety net of a couple $1,000 in case we have to replace. It would be lineal feet of wood, but whether they would use wood, plank or plywood, I have no idea.
Do we know their availability to replace?
Well, you mean when would they start?
Yeah.
No, that hasn't been brought up. Like I said, Royal Roofing said they're very busy, but they're having a very hard time getting material. So he wasn't promising right away. Energy Shield said they're busy, but their system is they don't buy the other roofing products. They fix what's there, remove the bad stuff, put new down, and then spray the ceramic membrane on it. So it's really two different systems completely. So we have a motion and a second to authorize Energy Shield to install roofs on both buildings. Is there any additional?
That's a quoted price, right?
At the quoted price, right? Price is. So I think that covers it. There'd have to be some pretty massive damage to the roofs, and I think we'd be getting leakage, at least in Roland Hall, if we had that at this time. But I would obviously keep you informed if something comes up and there's a problem that needs to be addressed and it's going to cost money. I won't just authorize it until I've got, council included. So. Okay, are there any questions from the council then? Anybody else? Okay, I'll call the question then. All those in favor of approving the motion to approve Energy Shield?
Since it's money.
Pardon?
It's money. And we do a call.
Yes. Do we all know the motion?
Yeah.
Okay, okay, then go ahead and do a roll call.
All right. President McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Sotheby?
Yes.
I do want to mention that Royal Roofing is the company that has been providing Christmas tree at Christmas time for the village. And so I went out of my way to help them get up on, we had to get a special letter, I borrowed a letter from the fire department so they could get up on Roland Hall. I really hoped that they would, benefit from this, but obviously it's a different situation when it comes to how much money it costs and what we have to do. So doesn't mean we don't appreciate them any less, that's for sure. Okay, Moving on then, next item of business is block grant applications. We have received two. One was for a tree removal request by an income eligible person. I solicited quotes for the tree removal, and this would be under block grant. This wouldn't be a village project per se. So one quote was for $950, and the other quote was for $800. There's a dead maple and a fir tree that need to be taken down. We're not going to grind the stumps, they're just going to cut them down. One company said that if they didn't have to remove the wood, that was their price. If we needed to have the wood removed, we wanted them to take it, it would cost more. We do have a couple of residents in the village that use wood, and we've talked to one of them, and on Porter Drive, and they promised they would come get the wood if we got it. So we don't have to worry about it disappearing, being gone and paying to get rid of it. So the only caveat we have is that right now we currently don't have a balance in minor home repair. I had hoped that by the time we got this all settled, that the county would have notified us that the 2021 monies were available. Unfortunately, they haven't, and we don't really have an idea when they might. But I'd like to get authorization from the council to have the work performed once we confirm with the county that we can spend the money and be reimbursed for it. I don't think the client is going to be thrilled with having to wait, but it is what it is. We don't have any control over that. So I'm asking the council for a motion to approve whichever bid you want, with the understanding that it will not be, the work will not be performed until the county block grant has notified us that the money is available.
I'll make that motion. And I would go with the lesser bid, $800.
Okay. Okay. So we have a motion and a second to approve the block grant tree removal by Ferry's Tree Service at a cost of $800. They will remove the brush and debris, but they will leave firewood size wood on the site. Okay. We have a motion and a second. Are there any questions on the motion? Or anybody else? Okay. Can we have a roll call, please?
President McDonald?
Yes.
Mrs. Sophie?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Okay, in regards to the other problem, down by, this would be on the road right of way of East Elmwood, just east of the United Methodist Church. There were four trees of concern. 2 are oak trees that won't need attention until November, December because of oak wilt. They recommend not opening up new wounds on oak trees. So we'll bid that at that time. One company gave us a quote of $1,000, and basically they're just going to cut the dead wood out of those 2 trees. But there's 2 maple trees further east of the church that are in very bad shape, and they both have to come down. They're much bigger trees. Budget tree service quoted $1,500 if they take them down and leave the wood. Now they wouldn't be leaving firewood size wood, they were just going to break it down in chunks. Ferry's Tree Service also submitted for $1,500 for both maples. but they would cut the wood to firewood size. And I think that's important to note because we don't want somebody working on the right of way with traffic and everything to take the wood away any longer than we need it. So it's up to the council, and I don't know if the companies will want to do one job or the other. They would probably prefer to do both since they quoted them at the same time. But I defer to the council on how you want to approach that. Now, this money would come from our budget. We do have in the general fund, or is it, in the general fund under other street services, we have 1,000 for tree removal. We also have 1,000 for storm cleanup. Well, technically, this isn't storm cleanup, but I think we could cover the $1,500 using those funds, unless there's an objection. That would be my recommendation.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion that we carry tree service to Boone to Naples as well. That's fine, the prices are the same. and It's just hand cut on the check.
I'll second that motion.
Are we gonna
Move money.
lose the money in the same motion?
500 from the storm over to tree removal.
Yes.
Okay. You want to read the motion after you've written it? Is there a second?
I did second
Okay.
it.
Okay, so the motion is to approve Barry's proposal at $1,500 with the money to come from the line items of
We're gonna move 500 from storm cleanup to tree removal
Okay.
instead of 1,500 on tree removal.
Is there any questions on the motion? Anybody else? Hearing none, can we have a roll call then for the motion to approve $1,500 for the tree removal on how much?
Mrs. Suzy?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
President McDonald?
Yes. Okay, thank you. At this time, I'd like to ask the councils to consider, fortunately for Shar and their Dan, they're going to be moving away. So we're going to have to appoint a new trustee at some point in time. Farther away the better, Shar, like my opinion. But at that time, the council needs to do something that sometimes it doesn't get done. And that is to have a plan. And so I'd like to suggest that upon the resignation of the trustee, that we solicit letters of interest and resumes from village residents that might be interested in being on the village council, and that we consider those at a public meeting, and then make the appointments based on those submissions. So basically, it's a motion that says that would open the door for that process, unless you want to put it off until next month. There's not a vacancy yet, so.
Not vacancy.
Yeah, so. Okay, we'll just put it aside for next month. All right. We received the annual request from Oakland County Health Network's Board of Directors to protect and promote publicly funded public mental health services for people. It's a rather lengthy resolution, so I'd like to suggest to the council that I just read the be it resolved portion of the what they're actually asking for, which is that Oakland Community Health Network Board of Directors hereby calls upon our citizens, elected officials, policymakers, and community partners to protect and promote Michigan's public mental health system by advocating to enhance service delivery for people while also ensuring maintaining the integrity and that the oversight of public funding remains under the oversight of a public mental health system. So does the council want to endorse the resolution?
I'll make a motion to endorse the resolution.
I'll second
Are there any questions on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion to support the resolution for publicly funded mental health services for people, please say aye.
that.
Aye.
Opposed, please say no. Okay. Resolution is approved. Okay. At this time, as most people know now, our village clerk, Cindy Grosskopf, has submitted a resignation to be effective the end of this month. In anticipation of that happening, I'd like to ask for the council to appoint a clerk to take, whose office will take effect upon Cindy's departure. And she will also fill in the meanwhile, in the absence of Judy, as needed on an hourly paid basis. And then we'll revisit that once the transition has been made. So, in addition to that, because this would be Cindy's last official meeting with us, she's smiling kind of. It's probably, I'm sure it's bittersweet. The council did draft a resolution of appreciation, and I'd like to read it now. The Leonard Village Council does hereby declare and resolve, whereas the Village of Leonard and its residents desire to recognize and express appreciation to the village clerk, Cynthia Grosskopf, for her citizenship and involvement in the Village of Leonard Council as the village clerk. And whereas the Village of Leonard and the residents wish to recognize her contributions of service to the village in support of village activities, including managing the Community Development Block Grant Program, and lend its support and encouragement to Mrs. Grosskopf upon her leaving office for her continued health, happiness, and future endeavors. Therefore, be it resolved that the Village Council for the Village of Leonard hereby recognizes and congratulates Village Clerk Cynthia Grosskopf for her efforts on behalf of the residents of the Village of Leonard and recognizes her many years as an active and involved citizen and representative of the Village of Leonard, and hereby declares and recognizes her service as the village clerk for over 25 years, commencing in March 1996, as well as the accomplishments and service during that time to the Village of Leonard and its residents and council, and express a sincere thank you and best wishes for the future. So that's by and for the village council. So thank you, Cindy, so much. It's been a good run. I mean, there are a lot of public officials and appointed officials that don't see that many years. And fortunately, here in the village, we've had a great support. So thank you so much on my behalf as well as the council's.
Thank you.
Okay. So, council, with Cindy's resignation taking effect at the end of the month, I'd like to recommend Lori Zelenak, a village resident. She's been on our planning commission for a number of years. I've worked with her on a couple different, not projects, but items of concern, and found her to be thorough and fair. And I'd like to recommend that Lori be sworn in as clerk upon Cindy's resignation taking effect. And as I described, that in the meanwhile, she can come and work with Judy and Cindy to get familiar with the responsibilities and she would be paid an hourly rate that we'll have to negotiate, but it will be within our budget guidelines. And Judy does have at least 1 week off between now and the end of August, so if Lori is comfortable and gets up to speed, we might even be able to have
Give
the
her you
office,
3 days.
have the office staff. And of course, I've offered, Cindy has offered, Judy has offered that any support she needs, we'll be there to provide it. And Shar had even suggested that the township is, and it's honestly, it's a good suggestion because sometimes you have to call the treasurer down there. People will call asking about appraisals and things like that. It's just, so we'll all pitch in and make the transition as smooth as possible. Filling big, I can't say big shoes, can I? But it's a big job. We appreciate it. So that's my recommendation to council. Is there a motion to that effect?
I'll make the motion that Lori Zelnok be appointed to village clerk at the expiration of Cindy's term or whatever.
I'll second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second to appoint Lori Zelnok as village clerk upon the resignation taking effect for Cynthia Groskopf. And she'll work as on an hourly basis until that time. So is there any questions on the motion? Or questions?
I do. How long when does her term end?
Well, her term's not ending, she's resigning
I understand that, but when she takes over, when's it's done?
at the end of the month.
She's not elected.
She's not elected.
I'm
She's
not
So- Oh.
They changed it when
Well, you
I-
made a mistake because you said her. Let's be politically correct, he or she.
Oh, my.
I stand corrected.
Come on, Mike, you know it's a biggie.
Well, I think it's quite clear that Cindy is a she. So,
Well, I know
and
that.
so is Lori, so.
I'm talking the new people. You gotta include guys in that.
Okay. Teaching an old dog new tricks, eh?
I'm telling you.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion and a second
Good luck to you.
for the approval. All in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, please say no. Cindy, thank you so much. Lori, thank you, and I'll work with you, and we'll make this a good transition. So thank you. Okay. Next item is a code amendment ordinance for professional fees and non-sufficient fees. The village attorney was a little surprised that we didn't already have something like this to guarantee that the village does get reimbursed for if we have to call in a professional on a project or whatever, to make sure that we have language that would require people to pay that money, or if there's a non-sufficient fund fee, non-sufficient fee to return a check. So this is basically an administrative recommendation that they recommend that we do. So once we adopt this, then Cindy will have to post an adoption notice in the local newspaper, and it will become a code, part of the code of the village. So are there any questions from the council on this? What's the matter? I saw a movement there.
Okay.
Okay. All right, anybody else? Public? Okay. All right, hearing none, is there a action then by the council?
Do you review?
Yeah, a motion to adopt the ordinance number 1.008 for the purpose to amend Chapter 2 administration by adding these sections to our code of ordinance.
I so move.
Okay.
And I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion Motion by trustee Kennedy, second by trustee Sutherland, to adopt the code amendment for professional fees and non-sufficient fees. Can we have a roll call for that, please?
President McDowell?
Yes.
Mrs. Sutherland?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, I wanted to make the council aware of, and I think you have a map in your packet. The road commission does this about every 20 years or so. They've come back through and said that they suggested where they would like to have right-of-ways, and they're always wide, they're never narrower. And in our case, outside of Leonard, coming in north, south, east, and west, they want a 120-foot right-of-way. Now, there's no way in Leonard that we could ever have a 120-foot right-of-way on Rochester Road, and probably not on Elmwood either. So, I'm asking for authorization from the council to form the road commission. That there are probably severe limitations on what they can do upon reaching the village as far as a road right-of-way. And I think it's important that we do respond, though, because they have done this in the past in communities, and the public really wasn't informed about it. And then when they found out, they were quite incensed about why the community didn't let everybody know. So,
Is there a map that shows the difference from previous to now, so that you can see where it's changing?
well,
I guess I'm not expecting you to have that, like,
Yeah, I'm
questioning if there's a delta.
if council wants, I would contact them and ask for the current numbers, what they are and what they were before this suggestion. Okay.
Yeah, and if you get that, let me know, I can post that on the website.
Okay.
Do you need a motion?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, just authorize the road president to contact the road commission regarding their master right-of-way plan and potential impact on the village of Leonard.
I so move.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you. So, motion by trustee Sutherland, second by trustee Kennedy. Any questions or
Yeah.
comments?
When are they actually planning to make that change? For 2022, or is that coming up this year?
You know, I don't remember. There was a cover, a brief cover email came with this. It's almost like an afterthought that they sent it out. But I'll find out.
Okay.
I'll find out, get that.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. There's no further comments. All in favor of the motion to authorize the president to contact the road commission for Oakland County regarding the right-of-ways, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say no. All right. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the council directed the planning commission to consider medical marijuana and the impact on the community and the neighborhoods that might be affected by it. And it was decided to recommend, the planning commission and the council agreed that there are basically concerns about the impact of medical marijuana, which is allowed to be grown by a homeowner for personal use. However, they also have the option of growing for up to 5 other people, resulting in up to 72 plants per home. So we're not saying by adopting this ordinance that you can't grow medical marijuana for yourself. We're saying that if you want to grow more medical marijuana for other people, that you have to be on a specifically zoned type of property, which would be light industrial property zone in the village. So the planning commission did ask a couple questions, and which I referred to the village attorneys, and they did acknowledge that there are constantly changing ordinances or laws, and in reference to the two that were referred to the village by the planning commission, the attorney responded that the only change referenced above relates to the village's ordinances to marijuana, as it went from referencing the defined term in the Michigan Public Health Code to a new definition. So definitions, etc., it doesn't affect the actual ability of the village to regulate where it can be grown. And we also did not consider the term hemp, which still uses I guess a slightly different cannabis sativa plant that doesn't have as much of the active cannabinoids in them. So the bottom line is, the attorney recommended that we move forward with adopting the ordinance, and if we want to address hemp itself, that can be done later. But it's still worth having ordinance number 1 in place while the hemp is being addressed. So I agree, my recommendation is to adopt the language of ordinance 1, number 1 of 2021, which is an amendment to our zoning ordinance that will provide for the growing of medical marijuana for other than homeowners, take place only on light industrial zone properties.
That ordinance, does that mean that a homeowner can grow up to 75 and get more than 75 has to be in the ordinance grow?
No.
That-
This ordinance says that by law in Michigan, a property or a homeowner may grow 6 plants for themselves at any given time. The law also provides that if a homeowner or a person wants to become a caregiver, they can grow additional plants for use by other people who also have to be registered. The conundrum is that when you put that many plants into a small area, the noise, the light, the odors, etc., have negative effects on neighboring properties. So this is how communities are addressing that problem. So, and I've actually been surprised at how many facilities there are in the immediate area. So it's not going to go away. It's going to continue. So I think adoption of this ordinance gives the village a very clear tool to use in the event that there are problems with growing marijuana in those quantities.
Do we have to post that? Do we have to put that in paper?
Yeah, we have to put a summary. And I believe it may have sent us with it. Okay, so is there a motion then to adopt the zoning amendment for medical marijuana?
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the amendment for ordinance number 1, 2021, to address concerns to have non-primary care of medical marijuana produced on light industrial.
Okay.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, very good. Are there any questions on the motion by the council? Public?
Is this strictly medical, not recreational?
We're not talking about recreational.
Where are these light industrial zones? Hate to ask.
Koski's old place, all that
Okay.
property back there is like industrial.
Okay.
There's a couple smaller ones here in the village.
So you're talking like right on Main Street here?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's about it right now, but that
Okay.
doesn't mean somebody couldn't apply for that zoning at any time, so.
So Mike, Frost House is residential, because rumor has it that there's been people looking to buy that house just to grow, the whole house for just growing.
That's not the information we've heard.
Okay.
There have been inquiries at the village about the property, but I'm not aware of any specific use, so.
This was from one of the kids.
One of the Frost?
Yes,
Okay.
was trying
They're not
to.
kids.
They're not kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that wouldn't be possible. This ordinance.
Well, the only thing that's no, I'm not talking about recreation. I'm just talking about medical marijuana. No, it wouldn't be possible to raise more than 6 plants on any. With the adoption of this, throughout the village of Leonard, you could raise 6 plants for yourself. But no more than that. You couldn't take down caregivers and say, okay, now I can raise 72 plants. And, if you have light industrially zoned property, then you could raise more, but only within the limits of the law, which is 5 additional caregivers. Plus, the ordinance establishes rules and regulations that have to be observed for security, power consumption, things like that. So, yeah, it adds structure to a relatively unstructured situation currently,
And this will take effect how soon?
as soon as it's published,
Okay,
which should happen next Wednesday,
okay.
if it's approved. Do we approve it yet?
We haven't done roll
I didn't think.
call. Okay.
Are there any other questions? See what you're in for, Lori? Somebody's got to keep me straight. Okay, so we have a motion and a second to adopt the zoning amendment for medical marijuana to our zoning ordinance. Are there any further questions? If not, we'll do a roll call, please.
President McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Sargent?
Yes.
Okay, motion carried. Thank you. Okay, what do you show as the next item on the agenda?
No.
Okay. Annually, the Village of Leonard, who is a member of the North Oakland Transportation Authority, we, by contract, we have to transfer our municipal credits to NODA. This year, it's unchanged. It's $380. So I'm looking for an authorization by motion of the Village Council for the Village President to sign and authorize the transfer of those credits.
I'd like to make a motion to transfer our $380 smart credits to NOAA.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Are there any questions on the motion? Hearing none, can we have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Sotheby?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
President McDonald?
Yes. Okay, so the motion carries and the funds will be transferred. What's next?
No.
Okay. The foundation work has been underway for a couple of weeks now. Unfortunately, due to the storms that blew through here over the last couple of weeks, Lapeer County DTE, which services our area, says they're not doing any new electricity installs. They're strictly working on storm damage. So the masons have been working using a generator to provide lighting and to power their tools. So I guess that's going to continue until we either get electricity or we get the job done. So just basically, that's my update.
I did take pictures and submit them as I told you.
Thank you. Okay, crack seal. As council may recall, last year, we solicited quotes. I solicited a quote this year from Scadeller again. Their proposal is to crack seal West Elmwood and all of Forest Street. Now, we did Forest Street last year, but they recommended that we touch it up because it's so bad. It's getting really bad. And I think it really, the crack sealing has really helped keep that road together. So their quote is for $11,500. So the council, our budget has $10,000 in it for crack sealing. So we have to come up with another $1,500, which Judy's shaking her head because we're spending money. We're spending a lot of money this year.
We need to plant some trees.
Yeah. I think once the pinch from the roofs is past us, we'll be okay, Judy. So, but meanwhile, we need, I think we could authorize it with and that budget category has enough in it, Judy, that, do we have to find $1,500 somewhere else?
I'll work on it.
Well, we don't have to do it tonight.
No,
Okay.
then we can just make a motion to do it.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we do the crack sealing for $11,500, which spends that budget, and trust that our treasurer will find $1,500 someplace else.
Gonna go home and pray tonight.
All right.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Alan. So there's a motion by trustee Sutherland, second by trustee Kennedy, to authorize contract with Scadeller to crack seal West Street and West Elmwood and Forest Street. At the amount of $11,500. Do we have a roll call on
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Sotheby?
Yes.
President McDonough?
that? Yes. Okay. That's done. Are we looking at anything else? So, all right, for my report, it seems to me that I answered.
Can I ask something to the DPW? I heard we have a new guy. No?
No, we've got some volunteers
Oh,
that are doing it
okay,
to get hours, so
to get hours.
community service.
Oh.
So please show them our courtesy.
Oh, I sure will, Mike.
I'm glad to get them. I mean.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody can get help now, so I'll take it.
It's nice to see it mowed.
Yeah, and it will be until he gets.
I know.
So,
I'm good with it.
okay. I think FOIA, we're all set. Community development block grant. We did have a furnace, I didn't bring it up. There was a furnace request by one of our residents. We did help the same resident last year. But we can't commit the money right now anyway, because we don't know how much we're going to get from the county. So I'm going to set that aside. I've asked the council to set that aside for now. If we get the money, I know that we need to get the tree done, but I think we have time.
You know, Cindy and I were talking about that, and we think there was a motion passed that there was one item per household for the county doctor.
They had to make an exception for furnaces or whatever that went over, but it was supposed to be one per household because there was certain households that were getting multiple. So,
I don't remember, I mean, I
might
don't
have
remember
been,
that.
It was before your time, but there was stuff.
Well, we've done that, so we've done the same on several occasions, haven't we, since then? Well, either way, we're not gonna take action on this front, so we'll have to look at it. And then I'll have, if it's true, I mean, if that's the policy of the village, we'll either have to take a look at it, or I'll have to apologize to the resident for having them fill out an application. So. Okay. Ordinance enforcement, we had numerous noise complaints about motorcycles driving around on property, theirs, some not theirs. I've referred them to the sheriff's department, call them. That way we'll have some type of record or baseline that if we do have to look at it as a council. I think we do have a sound ordinance as far as off-site sound. That's probably the first step, and then we'll have to go from there. But it's becoming quite a problem. Okay. We did get the radar solar-powered speed signs installed, and I think most people seem to be observing them. I've noticed a lot of brake lights when I look down towards the school.
Once we get past it,
Yeah, with the exception of the contractors. Contractors
They're terrible.
seem to just roar out.
They do.
there. I mean, they start here at Four Corners and they're doing 30 by the time they get to my house. But hopefully, the police said they were gonna give them a little time and then they'll come up and do some enforcement. People are warned now, so if they can't say, well, I didn't
They
realize.
start out really fast down here, you can see it on the sign.
Yeah.
Because I have my coffee on my porch, and then they slow down till it turns
And then
green.
gone.
And then they just get to Cooper Standard and they floor it again. It's like for one little section there, they slow down.
Well, I did ask the sheriffs if they wanted us to put the speed signs on them as well. And they said, we got too many signs as it is. I mean, it's like, they're just, that we don't really need them. It's just we're trying to emphasize to people. So,
The westbound traffic now that is particularly bad.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, people come in hot. Like, it's
oh,
not-
coming into town.
Yeah, it's not
Well-
enough for people to come in like 65.
Oh, yeah. And they stay that till they start putting on the brakes for the corner.
Yeah.
Well, if Cindy would cover Judy's ears, we could talk about buying those for north Forest Street as well as, west. Just,
but you only see it from the one direction.
Yeah, I was surprised
Yeah.
at that you only see it from one direction.
yeah, and they don't show how much over you go because the police said that it encourages people, they want to see how fast they're going, so they go over the speed limit, so that's why it shuts off at the speed limit. That is an option in the future. And we'll see how effective these are, and we'll go from there.
And what do those options cost?
I think
Don't worry about it.
yeah, we'll tell you when you need to know, Judy.
It's less than a new roof.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to ruin your evening any more than it is. Okay, so that's it for my report. I don't think we have a summer festival committee. They had a great response, a lot of good feedback on the block party. Exactly, the donors, a lot of thank yous. I think it was a success. And I think the festival committee will build on that as well. Cable commission, anything, Chuck?
They are not going to meet now until the latter part of September,
Okay.
and they are looking at upgrading their equipment.
Okay. Decorating committee, I think we spoke about it at our last council meeting because they had just finished the paint the town work. And publicly and privately, things have been spruced up, so looking pretty good. We did have some damage done to one of the bike racks, but we're fixing that as we speak. So,
Did the vehicle hit it?
pardon?
Did the vehicle hit it?
No, we're thinking that it was probably juveniles that were playing with it, working it back and forth, messing with it. So they were successful in bending it up, but not totally destroying it. Okay, is there anything from the decorating committee? No, Jennifer's not here. North Oakland Transportation Authority. Everybody's getting nervous in Oakland County because the Regional Transit Authority is rearing its ugly head again. We're talking about mass transit and building trains for Detroit, Wayne County, everything like that. And our county executive has also come out in favor of it, but he is also being cautioned by communities like Leonard and Oxford and Orion that we don't get services. They don't give us services, so we shouldn't have to pay. We have NODA. NODA takes care of us. We're fine managing NODA. We don't need their money. See, they say, well, we'll collect money and then you'll get some of it. Our response is just like we did with SMART 20 years ago. If they're not going to service, we shouldn't have to pay for it. And that's when we created NODA. So they have the ability to levy up to, or ask for 6 mills. So we'll have to wait and see what they come up with, but they're definitely going to be back. There's no question about it. And we've been really working on that at the Transportation Authority to address that. Planning Commission did a great job with the medical marijuana ordinance. Much appreciated. Hopefully things will continue like that. And plus we have 5 members now.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice, eh?
Very nice.
All right.
Is there a meeting this month?
You know is Leslie said anything about a meeting? Do we need one?
I don't think there's one on the calendar coming up. Aside from discussing continued connectivity, the sidewalks, which is kind of an ongoing work in progress with us, there really isn't a need. We've had a lot. I think we've met our quota almost already.
Yeah, I was trying to think if there was anything coming up. The only thing would be is if somebody, wanted to apply for zoning or whatever at this time. I haven't heard of anything. I know there's been some inquiries about the Green Park property too, south of town, but no action that I'm aware of. So.
Do we need to let cable know that there's going to be a meeting?
That there is going to be a meeting?
There's not going to be.
Yeah.
They don't like sending somebody out
Right.
if there's not a meeting.
Right. Well, there's somebody here now.
I know, but that's,
I know.
No, we still have to notify.
Okay, will you do that?
So there's not a meeting?
Well, would you contact Leslie?
Should be.
She should be the one to make the call.
So are we gonna, if there isn't, do we need a motion to cancel the meeting?
No, I don't think we do. Unless we want to make it conditional, subject to the,
No, we
Do
don't
we
need
have a
that.
date every month on the calendar?
Right, it's every month on the calendar.
yeah. Okay, moving on. Pollyanna Trail, we've got a family in the village that's volunteered, and they're out there every week, mowing and trimming on the trailhead, keeping it looking nice and everything, got flowers and all of that. They work mostly with the trail manager, and now that we've got a community service guy, the village is doing a better job trimming, cutting the grass in the whole area, so it's looking pretty good. Village Park,
Wait, back it up to the Pollyanna Trail. Do you know anything about the spraying thing that's gonna happen?
the what?
They're spraying.
The SISMA, they're spraying the invasive Phragmites.
Where are they spraying it? I mean, how far over are they spraying?
Well, it can only be on the trail right away, is what I'm told.
So they can't do it on our property.
No, it's the trail right away.
Okay. Because we got a letter.
You got what?
We got a letter.
From
They dropped it in our door. If
Oh,
we'd
really?
not seen them come in, we'd have never known it was there. About the spraying, because we have property. So I'm assuming it's,
Well, your property abuts the trail. So technically, I think the trail is 50 feet along Old Railway Street, where where the trail is. So they could go conceivably 10, 15 feet beyond the traveled portion of the trail. But I don't think they spray in water. Like if it's in water, like your pond, they wouldn't spray there.
does it do anything to animals? Because there's all kinds of animals that live back in that part.
No, they use a selective herbicide for Phragmites.
So it's not gonna harm
Well,
the wildlife.
I would suggest if you got a letter, you call them.
Why would I?
Because I'm no
Because
expert.
it was a pretty crappy way they delivered, I thought, jeez.
You mean put it in the front door?
Yeah,
Okay,
never knocked,
okay.
just dropped it in and took off,
Well, at least they did something.
I guess.
Sometimes nothing happens. So, okay, Village Park, I don't think we have any activities or anything scheduled. I think that's it for now. And then finally, community development block grant, we got a report. Pretty much all we have is $5,000 in there. We're waiting on the 2021 amount, which I think is $6,000. If I'm not mistaken. It seems like
6
it's
or
more.
7.
Yeah. I don't have any correspondence to report. Does any council members have anything?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
8:17. All in favor of the motion to adjourn, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say no. All right, thank you for attending. Thank you again.